Immersion. Oh, all right, we better go back. Okay, serious. Brian, you're supposed to warn us when you're gonna record this. Yeah, he's gonna ghost me again.
I'm back.
How many
Okay.
guests do we have on?
22.
Yeah.
I guess I should have looked at the. Okay. I don't see Rilla or Fodor.
Me neither. Let's give it a little bit more time, a couple more minutes. And then if they're still having technical difficulties, we can start the introductions in reverse order. So Deb, you might be first.
Thanks.
I'll go first if you want. I don't care.
Okay. Yeah, let's give it maybe one more minute.
Have you heard from them?
Yeah, Dr. Fodor's been calling Sam, trying to get it figured out.
Okay.
All right, Brian, while we're waiting, you got any knock jokes?
I should, but I don't. Do you?
None that I can say in a candidate form.
Right, exactly. Especially one that's being recorded.
Yeah, right. I wouldn't mind getting reelected, and if I tell my jokes, no way.
Right. Completely. That's funny. Yeah. Okay, I just got a text. Rilla's still trying to get on. And Jem just showed up at her house. So let's if it's okay with everybody, let's give it another minute. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Sure,
No problem.
no problem.
Great. Okay, they're going to try to join by phone.
It's funny, we've had 3 years of a pandemic of remote workforce and Zoom.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I'm actually ready to get done with Zoom and just make everything in person again.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. It's not the same thing.
No,
Mhm.
a lot more productive when we're in person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Plus, humans kind of crave that interaction and community. The
Yeah.
screen is, my engineers love it, right? We're all kind of introverted by nature, but they really do. We suffer by not being in person in front of the architect or the client and getting the nuances.
Yeah.
So I was glad when our board meetings went back to in person. That's important.
Yeah. It's a whole different dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We might have to let the Panther just go first.
I know, right?
Okay.
The long meetings and stuff, we really have to do what we can to keep things on time and running, because otherwise meetings just go forever and ever and ever, and we got to hold a control to them. Like I said, I'll go first if you want, but I think we really need to respect the residents that are on board.
I agree. Yes, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for participating in the 2023 Candidate Forum. A couple of rules of engagement. Everybody will have 5 minutes to introduce themselves to the community. It will be timed, as will the answers to the questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each one of the 10 questions. The questions will be asked in the order of answering will change per question, so everybody has an opportunity to be first and last and in the middle. So we were going to start alphabetically with introductions, but yeah, Deb, if you want to kick us off with your intro, that would be great.
Sure, I'm happy to.
Great.
Thanks everyone for being here today. My husband and I first came out to the King Carl area in May of 1986, when 1 month after we were first married. And we were just looking for our forever home. And the minute we drove back into this area, into the valley, we just totally fell in love. We moved into our home on Halloween Day of that same year and still live in the same home. We raised our 3 sons here and we never planned to move. We moved here because of the natural beauty of the area and the open space, and we stayed because of our neighbors and the realization that what an extraordinary community this is to raise our family. I believe in giving back to the community is something that we all must do, and there are many ways to accomplish that. And for me, one of the ways is to become a board member where I can contribute and give back to this community because it's given so much to me and my family. It's the people that make this community so special, and I want to have a significant role in representing them so that it continues to be an extraordinary place for future generations. I've served this community in many ways, as you can read in my bio, but primarily volunteering with the Boy Scouts of America in several different capacities over 20 years. My husband, Dave Seagraves, and all 3 of my sons are Eagle Scouts. And I'm sure many people in the community know me through this organization. And it was something that I enjoyed doing with my family and all the Scouts and the families that we've gotten to know throughout the years. My husband passed away in November of 2021, and we both shared a passion for serving our community, which we both did for many years in, like I said, in many different ways. And I want to continue serving our community and maintain the legacy it has and will have for the future. Recently, I served 3 years on the HOA board for the Waterside West condominiums in Fraser, Colorado, where I own a condo. For 2 of those years, I served as president, and one of my biggest accomplishments was leading an effort to create an RFP to find a new property management company, interviewing prospective companies, selecting the finalists, and negotiating the contract. And our board received a lot of gratitude and appreciation and praise from our homeowners. I also partnered with another board member, hiring a roofing consultant to help us design, develop, and implement the replacement of our roofs for our 6 buildings. And this was $1 million engagement that required a lot of negotiation, oversight to make sure everything with the contract was implemented with quality. I'm a very self-motivated, hardworking individual. I like to set goals for myself and work to achieve those goals and make adjustments along the way. I joined the workforce right after high school and didn't go to college until I was in my late 20s. I went to school at night, working full-time, having babies, and raising my family. I have a degree in computer information systems, and I'm currently retired after spending 37 years with a large telecommunication company, which is now called Lumen. With my first 10 years as a call center agent, and then 27 years in IT. During my career at the telecommunication company, I was a software engineer and worked my way up through management. I managed software delivery, deploying distributed technology. I was a director over the IT help desk and tier 2 support. I upgraded and deployed call center technology for 10,000 agents over a 14-state region. I managed a global workforce of about 400 employees and managed budgets upwards of $40 million. I negotiated contracts for labor resources, software, hardware, product delivery, outsourcing of work. The last 4 years of my career, I was an IT consultant for IBM as a project delivery executive, managing software delivery and IT operations. I believe the board has two primary responsibilities. One is to be good fiscal stewards, and two, listen and represent the community to the best of their ability. I'm a data-driven decision maker. My work experience required me to listen to the needs of my customer and understand their challenges and how my teams could develop or maintain systems that meet their operational needs. I believe that this experience helped me to develop good communication skills, not only listening, but also asking questions, getting clarity, understanding the issues, taking feedback, giving feedback in order to reach the goals and meet the expectations of my customer. I believe my professional experience and also my experience in serving community, my church, just being engaged, and that's beneficial. That will benefit me in serving this community if I get elected to the MA board. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Deb. All right, Chris, you are up, sir.
Fantastic. Wow, Deb, that was like exactly, that was perfect. I'm not going to take the full 5 minutes, so I might defer some back to Rilla or Fodor if they need it. But for right now, 3 years ago, I ran to serve the community. And to be honest, I had really honestly no idea what that commitment would be. But if you ask any of the current board members, it's substantial. We often donate up to 10 to 15 hours a week, depending on the situation at hand. And lately, as you all know, we've had some very challenging issues in the last 3 years. With that said, I'll tell you, this board has my deepest respect for the commitment to the residents. I think you all need to know that. It's not a 4-hour a month job, nowhere at all. If you speak to any one of us, we'll tell you the countless hours that you put in behind the scenes. We just do what it takes to get the job done, no complaining. Well, none that you guys will ever hear. We obviously talk amongst us girls, so seriously though, I want to take a moment, Deb, and thank you for stepping up to run. You are one of the lone candidates who really do fully understand the commitment of these after-hour events and all the work behind the scenes. Your husband, Dave, I got to tell you, a remarkable man.
He was. Thank you.
Great, thank
I
you.
might take the whole 5 minutes. I'll tell you, a lot of respect for him, serious. His humor and his insight blessed us. So I just want to say that, Deb, I know you're going to serve with that same magnanimous heart.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So why am I running? Well, as I outlined in the candidate responses, it's really 3 issues, 3 basic concepts: continued fiscal stewardships, give back to the community, right, Deb? And another one I had was represent the Plains and make sure there was a balanced approach. Regarding fiscal stewardship, it's a constant undertaking that challenges arise on a month-to-month basis. March 2020, we had that little thing called the pandemic that shut down, well, the world. And although our costs weren't greatly impacted, the MD was. It got hit hard. And so we all had to work together to make sure that our funds and our resources were balanced properly, so that we got the tax benefits, but yet we weren't strapping the MD with costs that should have really been the MA's cost. And that was a pretty substantial exercise that we went through to make sure that the MA and the MD were balanced. And those are the kind of things that you're faced with as a board member. Second was to get back to the community. And I feel I still have a little bit more to offer, and I wish to continue to serve for the next 3 years. At the Academy, we had a saying, acta non verba, deeds, not words. And I really hope that my deeds for the last 3 years speak for themselves about my commitment to the service to the community. Third, I have balanced the needs of the plains and the valley. Some decisions, they must be the valley, and some must just be the plains, and some are both. So I kind of look at it based on the community as a whole, and I don't really discriminate between the plains and the valley anymore. It's important to know this, since we as a community, we're one, and our vision on the board must be all inclusive and use that filter. So I'd like to serve Ken Carl for 3 more years and to continue to do what I've done for the previous 3. Thank you. See that, Deb? I was close.
Great, thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, and it looks like Rilla just joined us. So that's great. We'll give her a second to get in and ready. Michael, do you want to give us your 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure. I probably won't use the full time, so that'll be fine.
Okay, great.
I first moved from the East Coast to Colorado in the 90s to attend the University of Colorado. After that time, I've spent most of my time between San Francisco and Denver. My wife and I chose to finally leave the California Bay Area and raise our 2 daughters in Colorado because we recognize the beauty of the Front Range. I really appreciated my time in Boulder, and I find a lot of similarities here in Ken Carroll, visually, with nature and the enjoyment in the community. The opportunities available here, especially for our 2 daughters, has been pretty great. Since moving into the Plains, just over 2 years ago, my family's connected immediately with our neighbors. We made charitable contributions to Schaefer Elementary. We've enjoyed what the community has to offer. I'd like to see it continue to be an inclusive and family-friendly community while maintaining a sustainable plan for use of its amenities for the residents, specifically focusing on the growth that's occurring in respect to the households with children that are entering the community. We've enjoyed events like the Bruja, the Easter egg hunts, chalk art contests. I think my daughter got a best in show for her paint or chalk painting of a dog in a fence. We've enjoyed the ranch pool, and we frequently use the green beltway in the plains, occasionally the trails in the valley. And my specific concerns motivated me to actually throw in my hat for the ring, even as a new resident, is I feel that there's a disproportionate representation of residents in the valley on the board, particularly with the population leaning towards the plains and with the continued growth that's going to occur here very shortly with the developments that are pending, particularly with younger professional families with kids moving into the area. One of my other concerns specifically is actually the deteriorating fence conditions in the plains. They affect home resale values, frankly, the perception of the neighborhood to visitors that are passing through the community or even looking to purchase within the community. The advanced decays enough to be, I believe, a legitimate fire hazard and general safety concern for people walking along the paths. I also was really bothered by the inconsistent trash collection services I've seen since I've been here. Very specifically, actually, here in November through December, a 6-week period, I only saw a collection service twice. Considering the budget line item there, I'm a little disturbed by what's going on with that. As terms of, micro amenities, there's a derelict play facility near my home along Rampart Road that was at one point unsafe for use. I believe it was repaired, but it's still actively unused. With the improvements that have happened in Schaefer, with the park, both at the elementary school and across the street from it, things like that could be repurposed for other activities for the community. And I imagine there's opportunities for more scrutiny throughout the both sides of the plains and valley. Statistically, there was a survey in 2021 when I moved here. It said everybody rated the community great or better, but there was a leadership concern, in terms of it being a lower metric. I imagine there's been a lot of improvement here over the last couple of years, but I imagine that there's also still a lot of room for improvement. And I believe that leadership should The community should feel good about its leadership, particularly with representation from the community as a whole. It's not formulated by a single individual. It's by the community and a team and open dialogue with its residents. And I'd like to be a part of that. Thank you.
Brian, you're muted.
Yeah, you're muted.
We didn't hear anything you said.
Let me just reverse. Michael, if you could turn your camera on when you answer the question.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, no worries. There you are. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to see you. Okay, awesome. Perfect. Rilla, are you ready for your 5 minutes of fame? If you're talking, you're on mute. Okay. Rilla, if you're there, can you unmute? Okay, give us 1 second to try to get in contact with her.
Okay, there you got me. Oh, crap.
Welcome.
Okay, do you have me or not?
Yeah, there you are. Wonderful.
Okay.
All right, good to see you.
That only took a little bit. Sorry, I was having major issues getting on and I was just on with the CPC meeting, so I don't know what the deal was.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you're here. If you want to take 5 minutes to introduce yourself.
Okay, and if you want to see faces, Jim Fodor is here because he could not get on Zoom. He is on his phone,
Okay.
but if you want to see his face, then I'll switch.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Okay, all right. Okay, good evening. This has been fun. My name is Rilla Reinsma, and I have resided in Ken Carroll Ranch since 1992, when Ken Carroll was finishing out its development. I spent my youth growing up in South Denver DU area, and summer times always found me traveling and exploring all over Colorado with my family. A number of years after marrying, my husband and I spent 9 years in California due to a company transfer. And then since thankfully we were back in Colorado, we got transferred back and have been in Ken Carroll ever since our return. Ken Carroll was chosen because my husband worked for Johns Manville his entire career, and we were very familiar with this area. So there was no option. It's kind of, this is where we're going. We love having the open space to hike in and all the green belts through the neighborhoods to walk around and enjoy the outside air and watching all the wildlife that we have. We raised our 2 sons here, and I kept busy volunteering in their school, volunteering with their competitive soccer teams, recorded statistics for their high school soccer team, and I worked with a non-for-profit organization running concession stands at 7 different venues around Denver Metro for 13 years to pay for sports fees. And now that life has settled down a little bit, gives me time to attend nearly every Master Association, Metropolitan District, and Open Space Committee meetings for over 6 years. I have a quest for knowledge of the Ken Carroll Ranch area and community. And so this led me to start accumulating many documents and agendas and minutes and articles on topics relevant to our area. I also have been serving on the Community Planning Committee since 2017 and evaluated the results of that survey and the 2021 survey. I also volunteer tutor for an elementary school student in reading and math during the school year, and I do childcare one evening a week while their parents attend classes. Now, what are my goals for the Master Association? If elected, I look forward to helping with careful budgeting and fiscal responsibility. Just because we don't pay large HOA dues compared to other areas is not a reason to be not prudent with every dollar that we receive. Each category in the budget needs to be looked at with scrutinizing eye and determine if it benefits the entire community and its needs. For example, we have over 45 miles of a good trail system right now, but building more and more trails has only increased the trails maintenance budget and will continue to do so if there's not a moratorium on trail building. Prior to 2009, I recall a trail maintenance budget of well under $5,000 a year. And now we are budgeting about $50,000 just for trail contract maintenance. And if a new trail is built, constructed, that's an additional expense. The 2021 community survey stated that more residents use the paved trails than they do the backcountry dirt trails. And if so, why are we continuing to build dirt trails when they are not used by the majority of the community? The surveys were done to give the community their voice and in how and where dues money should be spent. And how many of these results have been implemented? Not a whole lot at this point. As a community, we need to have balanced representation on policymaking committees and boards. These two policymaking committees that I'm speaking of are the Community Planning Committee and the Open Space Committee. Even representation on those committees is necessary because of the polarization that's been in existence for the last number of years. If we have a balance of recreational and conservation members on both of those two committees, then that should alleviate some of the polarization, hopefully. And I believe that any topic should not be presented to the board from either one of these committees until there is a compromise at the committee level. I would also suggest term limits. As in the past, there have been committee members that have served for over 10 years. Volunteering for any committee is admirable and very much appreciated, but there are other residents that would like to have the chance to serve, as seen last summer when there were more than 10 applicants for just one position on the Open Space Committee. I have a great love for this community and I desire to give back as much as I possibly can. And that would by being voted in as a board member for the Master Association. And I strive to make Ken Carroll Ranch the best community that it can be, being the pride of the Littleton area and going back to our theme that we had a number of years ago as being Ken Carroll Ranch, true Colorado living. I am thankful for all of your votes and will do my best to be a good representative of Ken Carroll community as a Master Association board member. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay. Jim, are you, Dr. Fodor, are you ready?
Yeah, it's Jim. Thank you. Can you hear me all right? I'm on my cell phone.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, listen, I had trouble logging in today. Last year, there was a bit of a problem and I was able to log in. I have no idea what went wrong. They asked me for the password. I gave them the same password I gave last year and it didn't work. So let me continue. I'd like to say hello, everyone. Too bad you can't see me, but you will later as Will and I play musical chairs. This should be an interesting evening. It already has. But before speaking about me, the candidate, and Karen, my better half, I want to thank Brian Yall and Sam Marco for making this introduction to the candidates possible. I want to thank any staff members that were involved. I would also like to acknowledge the other candidates for volunteering, and I know some of them personally, and they have always been congenial and pleasant, even though we may have considerably different views with regard to the future and development of our open space. Since arriving in Ken Carroll in the early 1980s and taking my first hike, the open space has been near and dear to my heart. Soon after moving to Ken Carroll in 1983, I served on Enclave Subdivision Board of Directors as architectural chair. I immediately wanted to get involved with the community because I just admired what was going on here. And I also admired the attention that people were paying to our open space and its future. I have attended MA board meetings regularly for a decade and attended many MD and committee meetings. My business experience in private dental practice and in the U.S. Naval Supply Corps was complemented by my college major in business. With my leadership experience in the uniformed services as a retired senior officer, I feel totally ready to serve this community as an MA board member. And I would appreciate the votes if we could win this election this time. The last two elections, I ran for the board, increased my vote count by over 200 votes, and still lost the elections. So I'm trying once more, and we'll see what happens. I would like to read something that I wrote last year that I feel is feel that is more of my personality, and I would hope people would agree. I am proud to be a resident here. Like so many others, I would like to give back to our community. My initial Ken Carl Ranch Open Space Trails, excuse me. Background as a U.S. Naval Supply Officer for 7 years and a degree in management and economics can be applied for effective and equitable oversight of the budget. Also, there is a lifelong concern about worldwide deterioration and destruction of our global natural environment. Environmental preservation begins at home. Two unique, valuable jewels in Ken Carroll Crown are the foothills and hogback open space. There needs to be a balance between recreational use and the degree of recreational use and environmental preservation. In the past decade, I feel the historical balance which once existed here has been compromised. In some instances, it feels ongoing, systematic, serious consequences not only to the environment and wildlife habitat, but to the detriment of our resident quality of life. That is what I'm about. I also feel that there's been tremendous progress with the last board in various areas of concern that I have throughout the community, and I think they have done a commendable job. My problem is threefold. One is in transparency. I feel we could have done a much better job of communicating, especially accidents, traffic, and that sort of thing, which does not reveal personal information. The second thing I feel is that our committees need better representation. We have two committees that are very significant when it comes to the management of our open space.
And Dr. Fodor, you have 30 seconds left.
30 seconds, that's beautiful. So I think we need better representation on those committees. There was an opportunity to select 3 well-known conservation people, and instead somebody else was chosen to serve on the open space committee. So I think we need to take a good hard look at committee representation and balance. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dr. Fodor. Okay, for this next section, I'll ask each question and then call on the candidates to answer in the order. Please be reminded you have 1 minute for your answer. Question number 1, the Master Association and Metropolitan District work hand in hand to manage Ken Carroll Ranch. What relationship do you hope to build between the two bodies and their respective boards? And Deb, you are number 1. And you might be on mute.
Should we change the seats?
You're muted, Deb.
Of course.
You are.
And if you're not answering, could you please mute?
Okay, sorry about that. I believe the MA and the MD have a good working relationship, and we need to continue to foster that working relationship, ensuring that we maintain communications between the two groups. Strategize on challenging issues and work together on the best way to maintain and improve our amenities, as well as the maintenance of our community, to be sure we have the best possible outcome for all of our residents. A good example of this was the replacement of the pool at the ranch house. There was a partnership between the MA and the MD to finance and see the project through to completion. We need to continue to partner together and be a presence at community events from both the MA and the MD, regardless of which organization is sponsoring that event.
Great. Thank you, Deb. Chris, you are up.
I'm next.
All right, thank you. Through the joint study session, that was a joint meeting between the MA and the MD. I've basically had some direct line of communication between the MA and the MD and the directors. Through that, we've made significant steps in delineating the roles of both associations and the responsibilities of the two governing bodies. A good example of this is one of our meetings of the joint study session, the JSS. Scotty and I would meet with the two directors of the MA, the MD, and then two board members from the MD. And we would talk about what would be good agenda topics for the next meeting for us to kind of build that collaboration and work together to bring the unity between the two. And during one of the early meetings, we were talking about resources and assets and who controls what and who's insured and what. And I made a recommendation to Tracy and Victoria that they should pull in a joint auditor and do a full assessment of our resources. And that's just one example of how I've worked with both.
Great. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. Dr. Fodor.
Yes. Here I am. Look at that.
Ta-da.
Amazing. Here's my take. Everything begins with respect and communication. Respect for the residents who attend the meetings and respect for all board members. That encourages everyone to come together. I personally feel our amenities are open space and our facilities are private property and should be treated as such. Those who are actually paying for all this, the taxes, our dues, come first over non-residents and outside groups. The MA board members do hear resident concerns that come under the responsibility of the other board, the district board. Even so, we should be good listeners. If everybody is respectful and pays attention to the pulse of the community, then the two boards will work synergistically. Board members must pay attention to how, where, and when the community wants to spend the money before spending decisions are made. You do not necessarily have to be lockstep with the other board members to get cooperation. That's it.
Great.
You want
Thank
more?
you.
I have more.
I'm sure. Michael Phipps, you are up.
Yes, while the Master Association scope's confined within the aesthetic of the community, the Metro District's already carrying out the maintenance of the beltways and facilities. With the capital improvements that they're doing, I believe there's already an open door policy between the two boards, and it should just continue forward. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, Rilla, it's all you.
Okay. So, since I've been attending nearly every meeting for both the Master Association and the Metropolitan District for over 6 years, I believe I have a good idea, understanding of each of their roles in the community. I would hope to continue to keep all these lines of communication open, as there's already a good relationship. What apparently is to me, though, but not to the majority of residents, is that the relationship is complicated by the intertwining of responsibilities around the community, and that a cooperative relationship does already exist. I would work towards making this more apparent to the residents, which will in turn strengthen relationship between everybody. I would also encourage both boards to draw from our residents through the various committees and their appointments. There is a wealth of knowledge and expertise in the Plains and in the valley to draw from to help in the management of Ken Carroll Ranch.
Great, thanks, Rilla.
Uh-huh.
Right. Question number 2. What do you see as the Master Association's role in fire mitigation and preparedness? And Chris, you are number 1 now.
All right, thanks. This is a great question because I think it's the number one issue for the community is fire-wise. And with our fires that we've had in the last couple of years and with the Marshall Fire, we have to take it serious and reduce our fuel loads. The MA was mowing the 10 feet behind houses and thinning fuel loads in our open space, but that's not enough. You got to be proactive. So I did some research and tried to find out ways that we could have consultants come in and help us with this. There's no consultants out there. So I looked into what training programs and how we can get our staff certified. And through that, we ended up starting to get our rangers certified so they can be the experts protecting us and protecting our neighborhood, our neighbors, Willow Springs. So I believe it's being proactive. It's continuing this training and educating our residents to know their houses are the most risk too, and they got to control the fuel loads around their home.
Great,
All right.
thank you, Chris. Dr. Fodor.
Yeah, let's see. I got to get my finger. Oh God, there it is.
There you are.
The community owes a debt of gratitude to all who have taken part in the fire mitigation effort. This is a serious concern. However, before destroying some vegetation, seeking the advice from more than one professional is good policy. Viewpoints have been known to vary even among the professionals. Ken Carroll is very aesthetic and appealing place to live. People take pride in their yards. Private property rights should be respected. Communicate, but don't dictate. Great care must be used when altering the open space, our most valuable amenity. According to the survey, after giving it some thought, does that beautiful single tree really need to be cut down? Suggestion: create an incident report icon on the Ken Carroll website. Then fires and other events can be reported quickly from your phone in real time. Have the evacuation plan and map appear in the Life of Ken Carroll newspaper semi-annually. And then welcome any other ideas from the community by
Okay,
advertising. So, thank you.
perfect, thank you, Dr.
Is that
Fodor.
it?
That's it.
All right.
Michael, you're up.
Yeah, thank you. I think the role of MA in fire mitigation should be the proactive role that's already assumed. They've added a line item to the MA budget. It's even increased for 2023. There's also already stewardship of the open space, both through ranger and volunteer activity. I think the volunteer activity is actually reducing costs quite a bit. I think there's room for further mitigation with focus on reserving the decayed cedar fencing in the plains. They present a serious issue in terms of fire perimeter management immediately impacting the homeowner properties in the plains. With the putrefaction of the wood, it essentially is turning into charcoal, as well as community messaging on irresponsible usage of metal table wood fire pits and kivas, and the illegal firework activity I saw this past July. This is a region that's prone to high wind and fire risk. Nothing much more to be said other than looking at the Marshall Fire. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Michael. Really, you are up.
And unmute myself. Okay. Okay. To me, fire mitigation and preparedness is more up to the individual homeowner, with the master association and open space staff and other professionals making recommendations at the request of the homeowner. The master association can provide education and resources to improve fire mitigation around homes. They can also work in coordination with our Metro 13 Fire District Fire Department and host FireWise presentations, incorporate FireWise recommendations into home improvement applications submitted, As far as preparedness for our green belts and open space, that needs to be looked at from a little different perspective by its usage by nature. We can't destroy habitats and eliminate food sources necessary for the survival of the wildlife. We need to be prepared, absolutely yes, but we need to proceed with caution. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Rilla. All right, Beth. Are you on, Deb?
Sorry about that. Thank you. I think the Master Association has a couple of different roles here when it comes to fire mitigation and preparedness. Number one is obviously taking care of our open space and our common areas, making sure that we're implementing those things that we need to do to reduce our risk around fire. We need to educate our homeowners on what they can do. We need to one thing we can do is have an annual or biannual community meeting that does education and also gets ideas and feedback from the community. We could also work on implementing policies or procedures on landscaping implementation to avoid or reduce the risk of fire and ensure that people are implementing fire mitigation strategies on their own property.
Great, thanks, Deb. Okay, question number 3. Why do you think that there is such a polarization between conservation and recreation minded agendas for Ken Carroll open space? And what actions will you take to bridge the divide and strike a balance between the two?
Yes.
First up is Dr. Fodor.
That's right. And hey, Brian, why do you look more nervous than I do?
I'm not nervous.
What's going on? Listen, there is a controversy, great controversy in Ken Carroll. And it doesn't seem like anyone's doing anything about it. We need to do something. We need to take positive action. A conservation area south of Massey Draw would help alleviate the open space controversy. The 2009 Trail Master Plan is the problem, and it was accepted despite the warning of an internal professional report. Now, do not blame the messenger. He is highly respected and is only being honest. I'll quote in part, quote, "The complete disregard for basic trail design and ecological resource value is alarming." The report also says the alignments, especially the ones south of Massey Draw and upper Massey Draw, totally ignore the sensitive designations given to them by both the ranger staff and the consultants. Our most valuable ecological resources are being ignored. Now, this is what I have to say. The
And
stacked loop
you're
trail.
over your minute.
What?
You're over your minute.
Oh my God. Okay, sorry.
No, appreciate it. All
Yeah,
right.
I'm sorry. I got a lot here. I did
Michael,
it
you
1
are
minute
fine.
last time. Sorry.
Hi there. I'm surprised there would be polarization because fundamentally conservation is aligned with recreational activities. Conservation seeks the proper use of nature through stewardship, and it's inclusive of recreational use. I think we need to ensure the space maintains its natural beauty while being able to use it for the community. It might be best to merge groups of differing viewpoints so that opinions from both sides are forced to kind of meet each other and work as a team for a common goal. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Michael. All right, Rilla.
Okay, here we go. There is a polarization between the conservation and recreation factions that has probably been in existence for a number of years. There have been misunderstandings and misperceptions presented. It seems that some recreationalists mistakenly think that conservation-minded residents are anti-trail, when in fact, they appreciate them and even help maintain current trails. On the other side, there are conservation-minded people that think that there is rampant racing, rude behavior by mountain bikers on trails, when these types of incidents are rare. Does happen, but they are rare. This gives a bad image to both sides. tainting each. So compromise is a word that we need to be working on, and that it doesn't only exist on one side. I refer to the 2021 survey, which showed residents want a conservation area that doesn't have a trail on it, as the question said, but yet recreation factors are ignoring the request of the community via the survey. So both factions need to sit down and compromise using the results of the last couple of surveys. Thank you.
Great, great. Thank you, Rilla. Okay, Deb.
Thank you. I believe that polarization between the conservation and the recreation-minded agenda is because we have people that are extreme on either side of the issue, and those are the people that speak the loudest. I believe that it's possible to bring the community together, to make a concerted effort to understand what the community wants and make that a realization. The community survey indicated four top priorities: a dog park, fences, trails, and conservation. We have a trail plan that addresses trails. We have a task force to address fences. We have a task force to address the dog park. We need a task force together to come together to figure out what the community wants. And I believe we need to hire an expert that would work with the task force to figure this out, much like the MD is doing with the improvements to the community park. Options for a conservation area could be put together, presented to the community in a survey, getting feedback on options and narrowing down what to implement. It will take time as well as a lot of hard work, but I think it's feasible.
Great, thanks, Deb. All right, Chris.
Chris, you got to get on mute.
I clicked it, but it didn't go. Yes, this is a problem, but it's not the community's only issue. And it's not even our greatest issue. I'll just ask everybody to please be careful of the candidates to make this the one issue. With that, I believe conservation has been grossly misrepresented as open space without human interaction, without trails. That's the gross misrepresentation is the problem. There's no racing on our trails. There hasn't been racing on our trails. We gotta just ignore that when people mention it. What I would like to point out is a quote from Colorado Parks and Wildlife. They recently updated their 5-year trails and conservation guidelines. Trails remain an invaluable tool to meet both recreation and conservation needs. Ken Carroll loves our trails. It is our #1 asset. We have to respect that, and we can do that and have a conservation area, just like our national parks, which I consider the model of conservation. You're
Brian.
unmuted there, Brian.
I pulled a Schroeder, sorry guys. King Carroll Ranch is a special place with a seemingly endless list of maintenance and improvement needs and costs. How do you prioritize, support, and fund such activities? And Michael Phipps, you are first.
I think prioritizations are really already defined by the scope of the MA and its responsibilities. Its emphasis is on maintenance and upkeep of the community appearance. These are supported and funded immediately by HOA dues, followed by ancillary revenues. The HOA dues need to be set at an appropriate level to adjust for both inflation and expectations set by the homeowners that the association is supposed to be fulfilling. While most operations and maintenance expenses are relatively stable, I think there are opportunities specifically in trash collection budgeting and insurance budgeting, along with HOA dues realignment. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Michael. All right, Rilla.
There is always maintenance that needs to be done, whether it's in Ken Carroll Ranch as a whole or even our individual homes. Fact of life. Some days it's worse than others. There is also a term in business called deferred maintenance, and I think we have a lot of that going on in Ken Carroll also. An example of that every resident notices are the poor state of much of the perimeter fencing along our roads, most notably in the plains. This has been deferred for about 20 years and has now been made a priority. And this is something that all residents will benefit from in terms of appearance, home values, and even safety. Another example would be vehicles. Has regular maintenance been performed to keep them in good running condition? If they are under 7 years old, do they really need to be replaced? No, probably not. They can most likely be used for many more years. The board needs to take a closer look at how they can stretch limited funds. What benefits the community the most? What benefits it the least? That's how we gauge the priorities and make sure that they have funds to pay for them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Rilla. All right, Deb, you are up.
Okay, thank you. I think there's several things that can be done. You can do your research on any site that tells you about HOAs and how you can manage your budgets, but I think, and prioritize your costs. And I think the board is doing many of these things. So operational costs, just continue to review what expenses are required, keep things running, anticipate increasing expenses, prioritize projects, understand them, prioritize the most important ones to ensure there's funding. The board should continue to put aside a portion of the income for reserve funds and have a reserve study done on a regular basis every 3 to 5 years. And it should be reviewed annually by the board to make sure that we're utilizing those funds appropriately. The board should negotiate effectively with vendors, contractors, suppliers for better pricing. Do a cost benefit analysis on any fiscal decisions the board is making on a regular basis. And look at our liabilities, understand our liabilities and risks, and invest to reduce our most critical risks.
Great. Thank you, Deb. Chris.
Yeah, there's always maintenance and improvements that need to happen. What you have to do is just create a priority list, and that's what we've done on the board. Life safety first, right? So the fire security, the security cameras that we funded at the Bradford Pool area when there was bad behavior, when there was vandalism. So as things pop up, you just need to make sure you have enough reserve fund and some money aside to take care of certain things that become the top priority. Just the fire-wise, that suddenly became a high priority. We need to start shifting money to it. We had a dues increase, as you all know. I voted against that, not because I didn't agree with the increase. I disagreed with how it was being allocated. I felt life safety was the most important, and fire mitigation was important in our community along the Front Range. So I did vote that dues increase down, but that's how you do it. You create a priority and you stick to that.
Great. Thank you for that. Dr. Fodor, you are up.
There you are.
Yes, a primary pledge of board members to the residents should be the fiduciary responsibility of managing the money wisely. As the question mentions, maintenance seems endless. However, adequate maintenance needs to be mandatory. Every piece of major equipment comes with a maintenance manual. Unkept maintenance records are unacceptable. I was a naval officer, and the Navy is meticulous about keeping logbooks. I was selected to conduct inspections of other ships, and outside crews inspected ours. Ken Carroll Ranch can use that concept. The MA staff and the MD staff can help by just spot checking the maintenance logs of each other, either annually or semi-annually. Extending the use life of equipment saves money. All it amounts to is applying simple management principles. Timely entries are annotated by the work crew, and the department head performs the follow-up.
Great. Thank you. All right, question number 5.
Okay, that's me.
If you could allocate more funding to one or more areas of master association responsibility, what areas would that be and why? And Rilla, you are number 1.
Okay. So the number 1 deferred maintenance item is fencing, as we all know. And this has already started with the task force, that they are making progress on some of this stuff. But has enough funding been allocated to start this on the right foot in the first time? I'm fairly certain that there are other areas in the budget that could be funneled towards more fencing from those not as beneficial to the entire community. Like along Valley Parkway, there's a deteriorating rock wall. Is this on the maintenance of to schedule repairs? There are major cracks in the remaining asphalt paths in the open space. While we wait for the scheduled timing of replacement to concrete, can filler be put into these spots to assist in stretching its lifetime a little bit longer and not having resident injuries in the meantime? Better aesthetics the Ken Carroll Ranch has is beneficial to the entire community and its reputation for being a community that cares. Good aesthetics also reflects on home values, improving them.
Great, thank you, Roland. All right, Deb.
Thank you. I think where we need to allocate some more funding is with the new development. I mean, I think this is our number one issue going into this year, and that's the new development is happening in our community. And we need to look towards our amenities and developing a plan on how we're going to accommodate the hundreds of new families that we're joining our community. We don't want to get into a situation where we have to turn people away because we've reached our limit of people at the pool, or where we have extremely long wait lines for the tennis courts, et cetera. Perhaps we need to spend some money hiring a professional to do an assessment that can help us to understand what the potential impact may be, and then take the necessary steps to determine a plan to address those impacts. Because if we don't start planning now, we're going to miss the mark when this becomes a reality.
Great, thank you, Deb. Chris Schroeder.
All right, well, I think our number one issue is fire mitigation. Fencing is very close to that. It's definitely a aesthetic issue and a security issue, but I think if you look back at the fires that we had, the Marshall fire with the severity of it, the fire that we had over by the apartments at C470 on the Plains side, the fire marshal said that if that wind had been 20 to 30 miles per hour stronger, it would have mimicked the Marshall fire and it would have ravaged through the Plains. The fire we had in the High Meadows, same thing, that if the winds had been a little stronger and that trail wasn't there to help block it and give the first responders a chance to get to it, that would have taken down all the way down into the valley. So I definitely think that the fire mitigation is top, and it scares me, and it should scare all of you.
Thank you, Chris. All right, Dr. Fodor.
Yeah. There I am. Yes. You know, I've written about a variety of issues through the years, but I would allocate more funding to beautification of the common areas where we live. This would include tree replacement and pruning, planting shrubs, cleaning up vegetation beds, and supporting the fence rehab and replacement effort. It is not fair for our sprinkler system to saturate the fences, discolor them, rot out the posts, and expect someone not responsible for the damage to pay for it. Our parks appear cluttered. Proper placement of trees and shrubs can mask that clutter without removing any equipment. When we drive down the street, it should look picturesque. Plan ahead with the plantings. Beautification takes time. When a change is proposed to a section of Ken Carroll, listen closely to the residents that would be most affected. The beauty of the entire community depends on the beauty of each individual subdivision and the surrounding area. Residents buy their homes and they put their trust in the board members to uphold the quality of life and the value of their properties. Do not compromise the integrity of the neighborhood by the so-called good of the whole. Residents will tell you.
Thank you, Dr. Fodor.
Residents will tell you if the change will enhance their property values. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Michael, you are up.
Yeah, no worries. I'll save some time to give back to Jim there. The recent addition of fences as a line item to the MA budget is well welcome, but it's very well below what is needed. Frankly, a better aligned budget expectation to properly improve the appearance of the fences and some of the absent signage will pay back the homeowners in dividends from their perceived property value and increase real estate comps. More funding should not only be allotted to this item, but MA should be a community partner in facilitating fence replacement, particularly in negotiating a large scale order with the contractor to alleviate some of the pressure on the homeowners who share fencing along the Green Beltway path that's being damaged by the sprinklers. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mike. All right, question number 6. There have been some negative interactions with some residents on social media, via email and in meetings. What can the Master Association do to build community and address negativity? Deb, you are first up.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is an important issue. I don't think the MA has much influence on controlling social media or what somebody writes in an email. But I do believe that the MA has control in setting policies and procedures and ensuring both the board and community members are following governing documents on how meetings are conducted, how community members provide feedback and input, and on actions that the board can take when community members or board members are violating these policies. We need to hold each other accountable for our actions and for our safety. Homeowners have the right to voice their opinion, and the board needs to respect that. But we also need to be sure that everyone is staying safe and we feel comfortable in participating in the meetings. The board represents the entire community and should always acknowledge concerns that are brought forward by any community homeowner.
Great, thank you, Deb. Chris.
All right, well, just ban Facebook. Seriously, I don't play on social media, but I do understand the question. And honestly, my opinion is the MA and staff just shouldn't, we shouldn't be on social media, but we do have our social media sites where we should post and give out and push our information. But we should just honestly, as officials and people running it, not get engaged in what happens on some of the social media sites and not let that affect us. We govern off of information we have and that we know. Honestly, we need to keep doing the things that we do, the Taco Tuesdays, the pool nights, the puppy swim. I know it's not called puppy swim, but I had a puppy and it swam.
Doggy dip.
Yeah, the doggy dip. Christmas tree program, and even Hug a Ranger Day, so when you see Sean, just go give him a big hug. Tell Sean I started that one. Hug a Ranger.
Yeah, that'll go over well. All right.
Oven would like it. Hug Oven. He's there
you go. Perfect. All right, Dr. Fodor.
There I am, okay. The board cannot and does not censor free speech, but does have certain standards, and they apply those standards in the letters to the editor. Yes, there is a disagreement between mountain bikers and the conservation-minded. Letters to the editor provided information, and it is called freedom of speech. The letters are signed, and with few exceptions, I find the letters to be civil and informative. This is as much a money management problem as it is about damage to the open space environment. It is important. I do not participate in social media. When social media is used in an abusive or caustic manner, it says more about the character of the person hiding behind a computer than it does about the individuals he or she is attacking. I find that to be cowardly. As a military veteran, I would not want to go in a hostile situation with a person like that. Then look at the example they are setting for their own children. What sort of parents are these who teach their kids this behavior? I heard about damage it does to some children, and particularly with some adolescents abusing other teenagers. Children are committing suicide if you are committing
Dr.
murder.
Fodor. You always have so much good things to say, but you're over your time.
Okay.
Nice, perfect. Michael, please.
Yeah, I think the MA can facilitate positive interactions merely by expressing empathy, patient listening to all opinions from all community members. I mean, frankly, community is built through collaboration and thoughtful communication. Personally, I'm interested in listening to all members of the community, including those with opinions and concerns that might not be shared by the majority. The homeowners are all adults. There's a foundational expectation of all community members to treat their neighbors as they wish to be treated, maintain a professional decorum, particularly in meetings in the community, and exhibit some kind of form of thoughtful communication in person or online. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Michael. Rilla.
Okay, like some others, I have not participated in social media. it is a major form of communication and news distribution, but we all know it can be a double-edged sword, both good and bad. What the Master Association can do is lead by example. In the past, there have been instances of lack of civility without any apologies on social media sites. This, in my opinion, is a matter of having some manners. It is certainly can be encouraged by the board to be civil in all matters. And that bad language, hostility, damage to reputations, etc., will not be tolerated in any medium used. Everyone has the right to speak in meetings, but abuses of any kind will not be tolerated. We have a Robert's Rules that are used, that's just a good code of conduct used in meetings. This can be published periodically in the Life of Ken Carroll and spoken about as a reminder at the beginning of meetings off and on. The board can encourage residents to also email them for specific answers to their questions that time may not allow for in meetings. And hopefully we can get some stuff done there. Well, thank you.
Great, thank you, Rilla. Okay, perfect. On to question number 7. How do you strike a reasonable, logical balance between the preferences of individual homeowners and the best interest of the community as a whole? Chris Schroeder, you are up.
All right, thanks. Well, community takes precedent over the individual and minority. I'm an engineer. Sometimes I just boil it down to black and white. You can't make a decision for the few, and you can't manipulate the data to make it look like you support the majority. Intellectual integrity requires a hard look at the data and the facts. And you govern based on the data, or you govern based on those data and the facts and what's right for the whole community.
Great, thank you. All right, Dr. Fodor.
See if I can do it this time. You need to listen to the people who would be most effective. The people who are most effective, they will tell you if an addition will add value to their property or if it will not. If it doesn't, then spare the rest of us the expense. This is a relatively small community, 1/10 the size of others. It may be some minority special interest group that wanted the addition anyway. We are too small to be everything to everybody. Having moved here in the early 1980s, I had seen what a good developer can do with a large area of land and create something aesthetically special by using the advantage of adequate setbacks, berms, proper placement of trees and shrubs. The developer still created this amazing feeling of openness while simultaneously placing so many residential units here. We need to grasp this concept again. The philosophy of a natural appearance that once was needs to be reinstated. Did I do it?
You were pretty darn close.
All
Thank
right.
you, Dr. Fodor. All right, Michael, you are up.
One of the challenges of organizational leadership is that decisions are inevitably not shared by all members of the community unanimously. Part of acting as a board member is to recognize there will be insights not available or shared by individual homeowners, particularly when it comes to budgetary constraints or the needs for alignment with the future of the community as it's being defined by new homeowners entering Ken Carroll. That will be expecting fair representation with the community and fair use of amenities that the community has to offer. I think there will be a balance struck through dialogue, and hopefully a reasonable consensus can be made on that.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Rilla, you are up.
Striking a logical balance will have to start with the meeting of the individual homeowners to hear their preferences. They need to state their case and the reasons behind it. Then the board needs to look at the subject and state the pros and cons of benefiting the entire community or not. There are many guiding documents that we already have in place to refer to since we are a planned community, and we've got a big list of Ken Carroll covenants and multiple community surveys to use as default resources. Once this has been determined, then the board goes back to the individual homeowner and shows them their results. At some point in time, there may be exceptions that aren't in any guiding documents. But if the resident can make a convincing case for something on their own home, then it should be diligently considered, but this should be a rare occurrence. If it is beneficial, then things can proceed in an orderly fashion Approval is granted, bids can be obtained, funding allocated, and the project can be scheduled for completion. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Rilla. All right, Deb, you are up.
Okay, I think there's facilities in place today that we have, that the MA board has to gather input and feedback to understand what the majority of the community wants. And those are, we have committees and task force organizations that work to bring ideas from the community together and present them to the board. The board has responsibility and accountability to the homeowners to ensure that there's adequate and diverse community representation on these committees and task force. The board needs to be sure the checks and balances that are in place to ensure adequate and diverse community representation on these organizations are the right checks and balances. The board needs to continue to ensure that there's communication to the community when these committees and task force meet, so that the community members can attend the meetings, bring forward their ideas and input and feedback. And if we just continue to foster those things as well as do the surveys, then I think we continue to get community engagement to understand and represent the community as a whole.
Nice, great, thank you, Deb. Question number 8. What suggestions do you have for addressing the impacts of drought, fire safety, and increased irrigation costs? And Dr. Fodor, you are up.
There I am.
There you
Thank
go.
you. Fire safety is a continuing priority because of the threat of a wildfire is always imminent in Ken Carroll. There should be regular periodic reporting in the Life of Ken Carroll paper and through the email media. This should describe the fire mitigation progress and fire prevention practices. There are a few of many points of emphasis. Encourage residents to become signed in for code red alerts. Describe the evacuation plan periodically in the media. Encourage resident participation through education and not by harassment. The home is a castle. Your private property, you have rights. About a decade ago, the Ken Carroll District Board made a request for a water use reduction plan. Both Ken Carroll boards should have a plan for the future. Any plan would be painful. I submitted 2 alternative plans at that time. Either could be used at times of high water costs or in times of drought. Each was quite different from each other, and it was not feasible to use them simultaneously. I can give you those plans if you want them. I can't hear you. Oops.
Oh,
Can't hear.
sorry, they're vacuuming here, so I had you on mute. Thank you so much.
They are here as well.
Yes, all right, perfect. Michael, you are up.
Okay, we'll forgive you.
Yeah, having firsthand observed the impact of drought in states like Florida and Arizona, the MA could do an assessment of reduced water consumption by increased usage of low water native plants, using landscaping, the community facilities, and along the signage medians in Ken Carroll. Although there's a mailer sent out every season from the water utility regarding water restrictions and acceptable times and water amounts to use for watering their landscaping, I've never seen any enforcement here in the community. Many homeowners don't adhere to water conservation guidelines when they really should. Homeowners could be encouraged through incentivization to make modifications for drought tolerant landscaping. And I don't mean rock gardens. I think I've already addressed some of the fire safety concerns in some of the earlier questions. However, I think that adequate tree pruning along the greenbelt sidewalks in the plains is well overdue as far as fire perimeter setting and wildfire preparedness. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Rilla.
Oh, there is nothing that we as humans can do about nature, nor is there really anything we can do about increased cost because inflation is here. Sometimes it's higher than others. But what we can do is keep the equipment that we have in tip-top shape, do repairs as soon as they are notified, whether it's by a resident or a computer that signals that there is a problem. I think there needs to be more smart sensors on our sprinkler system so that when there is a quarter of an inch of rain or more, that in the next 24 to 48 hours, the sprinklers do not come on, just like most of us monitor our own personal sprinklers. I have witnessed sprinklers running after there has been a good rainstorm and also over sprinkling onto sidewalks and into the street. So that needs to be addressed and make sure that we've got the sprinklers going in the right spot. Fire safety needs to be encouraged by the board via information in the paper and e-news, like the others have said. And have the residents register a phone number with Jefferson County. A reverse 911 call is an awesome thing that we have now. We also need to, the Master Association can say where to go to free resources, give examples of what to case in case of an evacuation, and for residents to have an evacuation route at a meeting
Great.
location if members are not together.
All right,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Noah. All right, Deb.
Okay, thank you. I think some of these things we're probably already doing, but review the automatic sprinkler timing. Are there areas where we can cut down on watering, especially during early spring or late summer? Are there areas and this would be like in our green belts and common areas where we do that watering? Are there areas we can improve coverage to reduce or limit the water runoff? Continue to use mulch where we can, and assess these areas and any others and make the necessary adjustments. Schedule a consultation with a reputable landscaping architect to educate board members and residents about plants that are most appropriate for our community that require less water. And then take that information and implement landscaping policies if we need to that aren't already in place. Continue to communicate to the community on fire safety tips and checklists and fire mitigation on their property, and continue with fire mitigation in the common areas and open space, ensuring that we have a plan each year to address the community's highest risk areas and take action on those plans.
Great, thank you, Deb. All right, Chris.
All right, well, this is a concern of the individual residents and of the association on the whole. My simple answer, by the way, is do what we're doing. We have an irrigation replacement project that's going on where it's saving us money, it's saving water. We're selecting high efficiency heads. We do have sensors, more efficient layouts for the system so they don't spray the fences or the street or the sidewalks. Also, the new systems reduce water consumption by minimal broken heads and no broken lines from the old aging systems. Second, we ran a pilot program where we had a zero escape median, so I'd like to do more of that. We're selecting more natural grasses and plants and spreading that throughout our community.
Great, thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Okay, question number 9. Approximately 750 new homes will join King Carroll community over the next few years as part of the North American Development Group's build out. What do you propose to successfully integrate new residents into the community while minimizing negative effects on existing residents? And Michael Phipps, you are up first.
The incoming residents are going to be bringing demanded amenities in King Carroll, but this comes with an increasement in HOA revenue. They'll be bringing an increase in proportion of residents to the plain side of King Carroll specifically. I believe we need to maintain an amicable discourse in the community and adequately represent these new residents in the community as well. Excuse me, my throat's a little dry. This is a 13-hour workday I've had today, so Monday's pretty tight.
No worries.
Specifically, I think the new residents need representation in the community. They're adding 750 new households. You're going to be looking at over 3,000 residents on this side of the highway from the valley and just over 2,000 in the valley. I think we need to welcome them with open arms and plan accordingly.
Great, thank you, Michael. Rilla, you are up.
Well, the good thing about the 750 new homes is that they're not going to be built all at once. So this will give us time to adjust and infiltrate the new residents into the community a little at a time. I myself am still unsure about how I feel about these new developments, but they have always been zone residential. And now that we are at a point in time when the building is imminent, It's hard not to feel a little bit of angst, but also it's going to be exciting to welcome the new neighbors onto the plains. Current Ken Carroll neighbors have a lot of resources ready to share with these new residents. From what I can see, the traffic flow is going to be the largest negative, but Jefferson County is responsible for traffic control, and they have already upgraded the C470 interchange. It is inevitable that there's going to be more congestion around all the commercial properties also, but that means more money coming in for those businesses. Parking at the community center and Brandon Gerhart Park are already limited, and more people coming in to use these amenities will be an issue. So do we need a task force to look into solutions for this? Could be. Pros and cons to everything. And so the board needs to be an example to show patience and guidance while all these changes begin to occur.
Sorry, muted again. Deb, you are up.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think this is a really important issue. As I mentioned earlier, we need to start planning now to address the impact of the amenities with the hundreds of new families that will be joining our community. In addition, we need to have a plan to welcome these new homeowners to our community. When my husband and I first moved to King Carl in 1986, there were community meetings that were held to share with new homeowners of the new development areas, the history and future of the King Carl community. And I think it will be important to hold these types of community meetings that would be targeted to these new homeowners and invite existing homeowners to attend as well. And that way we get more of the community involved in welcoming these new homeowners, and they learn about how we operate, what we have to offer families, and just get their input as well. So we need to make sure that we're welcoming them to our neighborhood.
Great, thank you, Deb. All right, Chris, you are up, sir.
Well, currently the architectural committee is reviewing submittals from the NADG. And for example, they rejected a parking submittal that was deficient. They're doing their diligence. The staff, Brian, thank you very much. I serve as a liaison to that committee, and right now they're reviewing parking, the look and feel of the development. They're looking at the fencing looking forward to this community to make sure that it's meeting our standards. Most importantly, messaging to the new community, once the residents start to move in, they got to be welcomed. Just as we'd welcome a neighbor that moves into a house next door or down the street. The reality is we can't stop this development. We can guide it to meet our high standards and our ODP, but then we must welcome the families and new residents with open arms when they start to move in.
Great, thank you so much. Dr. Potter, you are up.
There I am. You know, I see there's a lot of agreement on this question, and my answer is similar to the others. The new residents of the North American Developed Group homes will be our future neighbors and friends. They will be paying dues and taxes just as we do. The only difference is they will have moved here after we did. So first, we should welcome them through media announcements. Second, I suggest that there should be scheduled orientation meetings open to the Ken Carroll residents so we can all get acquainted. Third, through group meetings, it will provide the opportunity to explain our amenity availability and non-resident guest use policies, including the open space information. There are going to be unforeseen problems, but these can best be solved by our initial encounters as friendly and welcoming. I can go on, but
No, you're good. You hit the minute. Thank you so much. Okay, and for your final question, do you feel criminal activity is a concern for King Carroll Ranch? And if so, how do you propose mitigating criminal activity? And really, you are up.
Okay. Criminal activity is always a concern, whether it's in Ken Carroll Ranch or other areas of our city and state. As a community, though, we need to not become lazy and do things like leave valuables in plain view and at activities, or even in our own driveways, leaving garage doors open, etc. Our best defense is common sense. Look at your property and vehicles. What can be seen from the street that would be an invitation to criminal activity? If you're working in your backyard, don't leave your garage door open unless you can have a clear view of any activity in your front yard. The best thing the board can do is encourage things like organizing neighborhood watches, have security cameras on Ken Carroll Ranch properties and amenities, encourage personal security cameras if that's available, if you can do that, and resident awareness of just noting things that are out of place or out of the norm and reporting the same. The board and the police departments rely on us residents to help them mitigate the criminal activity. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Rilla. All right, Deb, you are up.
Yeah, like Rilla said, criminal activity is a concern for any community, and we need to all be aware of what's going on when it comes to criminal activity. There was a presentation, I don't know, it was maybe like a year or maybe less, by the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, where they presented statistics specific to Cape Coral and the Chatfield area, and what people can do to potentially reduce criminal activity and keep our neighborhoods safe. And I think these types of forums on a regular basis is very important to educate people and so that they can stay safe and reduce their risk. I believe we can get lax, thinking it won't happen to us. And education is key to understanding the risks and taking the necessary action. I also think it's important to understand what's happening when it comes to criminal activity in the common area in our open space. The board, as well as our rangers, need to get reports on criminal activity or suspected criminal activity in our common area and open space, understand the risk and take the necessary action to engage law enforcement. For any high-risk areas, the board should take the necessary action to improve the safety and minimize or eliminate property damage.
Great, thank you, Deb. All right, Chris Schroeder.
All right, thanks. It is an issue, but it's not widespread. We're blessed to live in this community. But for everybody listening, common sense, right? Really, you close your garage doors, you lock your cars at night, don't leave valuables out. That's what we have to do. Now I pushed and researched for the MA to get some camera technology. That's what my company does, some of that stuff. We didn't provide anything. I was just doing the research myself for cameras at the ranch house, at the Bradford pool. So I'm going to say we keep doing what we've been doing. When things pop up and the need arises, we address it at the time. We're always looking at cameras. We're always looking at patrols. Just the fact of the patrols hitting the parks and the parking lots does huge to distract from, the malcontents and from people doing, bad things out in the parking lot at night.
Absolutely, thank you, Chris. Dr. Fodor, you are up.
As for law enforcement, I have had some experience. In the U.S. Public Health Service, which is a uniform service, I was assigned to the Hospital and Clinic branch and also to the Department of Justice. I recommend there could be more transparency without revealing private information. Use the media to give alerts, helpful details, and crime prevention advice. I feel these notices should be periodic and found routinely in a designated section of the paper. A few tips. Burglars are inclined to enter the house the way you do, through the door. Do not confront an intruder. Call 911. Try not to block the line of sight of a door with vegetation or other means. Having a reputable security system with signage is a good deterrent. The administration of Ken Carroll has been taking steps to mitigate crime and vandalism with cameras, by using lighting and patrols, but nothing much can be done when people leave their keys in the car, and we had a couple cars stolen. As the last thing, we're in a pretty safe area because there's two areas that you can get out and out of this valley. So the plains area is more vulnerable, and that's where cameras come in handy. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Fodor. All right, Michael Phipps, do you want to?
Yeah, I do. I'm
Round
probably
us
gonna
out.
have the time on this one, actually. Unfortunately, the Sheriff's Department has questionable views on crime mapping. And unfortunately, crime has increased in the region. I feel incredibly concerned as I've been impacted directly by vehicle and housing burglaries in my immediate neighborhood, on the street I live, from my next door neighbors. I have at times personally reached out to the Jeffco Sheriff's Department, both to request patrols of my street, home safety checks, and to express my overall concern. Because of Ken Carroll's location along 470, particularly the Plains, it's a very easy in and out access location for all too convenient activity from bad actors. Encouraging neighborly engagement with your friends next door, building a volunteer neighborhood watch group is strongly warranted. The addition of speed bumps within the community would not only benefit pedestrian safety, particularly with children, but has been shown to reduce criminal traffic, as it's much less convenient to quickly exit the neighborhood and do a criminal getaway when you've stolen something out of somebody's car or their car. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, everybody, good job. That concludes our candidate forum for 2023. As you know, this has been recorded and will be posted and linked to on our website for anybody who is interested in reviewing it again or sharing with your fellow neighbors and residents. So thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it. And I hope everybody has a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Everybody have a good night.